So this is a research project that you already heard the presentation of Nina Belayeva. She was the leader of this project together with Sergei Argetko, who's from the Department of Applied Mathematics and Artificial Intellect. The official name is Discrete Mathematical Models for Political Analysis of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. Also, we have a team of students. Important to say that the main idea, the main goal, the research goal of this project is to test formal concept analysis as a theoretical and methodological tool, an instrument, and what new it gives for the democracy evaluation. If I'm talking about democracy evaluation in general, there are several problems that are conceptualization, personalization, measurement, aggregation, validation, and interpretation. It is quite general, following Weimar and Merkelin, but also we had several problems here too. You already know from the report of Nina Belayeva that the formal concept analysis, the main outcome is to give the hierarchy of parameters and objects, and that will explain how this making of such hierarchies contribute to this solving of this problem of democratic evaluation. The first thing is conceptualization problem, and the myth or stereotype or problem that we have here is the general understanding that democracy is highly contested concept. I think that this is a very dangerous myth, because it's led to the conclusion that there is no real democracy. If there is no real democracy, we can establish our own democracy, like sovereign democracy, and establishing such sovereign or manipulated or different kind of people democracy, it will give opportunity for power to manipulate people. What this formal concept analysis propose here is building cognitive schemes. So this is, we are familiar already from the report of Nina Belayeva, that in academia we have quite different conceptualizations of what is democracy still. But even existing, conceptualization of democracy give a ground for this myth. But as Christian Wells already said, that despite of this, if you take a correlation, the correlation is very high between different indices. So the question why it's high. Then there's also there is a gray zone, so-called hybrid regions, where the race between different indices, the disagreement rate is quite more higher when we are talking about the top countries or the about the countries that is down in the ranking. So why? It's happened. What we did. This is the latest from formal concept analysis. We take 55 texts. The text was especially about gray zone countries, about hybrid regions. Another, say, this text propose democracy with adjectives. This is the one of the strategy. If you don't know how to call these hybrid regimes, we just add adjective. This is 55 texts about different democracies with adjectives, like liberal democracy, legitimate democracy, sovereign democracy, manipulated democracy, and so on. And this is an automatical thing that we put in the computer these 55 texts, and this computer produces these letters. What does it mean? It means, first of all, that it's sort of content analysis, that there is different words that appear in amount of different texts. So the word, for example, party appear in 25 texts. The word power appear in 23 texts. Govern, effect, and so on. Then we have the crosses. Crosses of the notions that call concepts in formal concept analysis, like, for example, the word party and power appear in 17 texts, and so on. What does it give for us as a political scientists, policy scientists? it gives us first of all a conclusion that despite of this diversity of different kinds of conceptualization, nevertheless there is a consensus in academia. There is a consensus of those who study democracy. And this consensus is this cluster of concepts that are very highly crossed with each other, interplay with each other. We can say that this, in using the discourse theory, that is a sort of dominant discourse of what is democracy and how to measure it, how to conceptualize it. Yeah. And what is it? If we will look through these notions, we will see that this is the so-called procedural minimum explanation, expanded procedural minimum definition and explanation of what is democracy. Well, in other words, democracy is first of all procedures and institutions like political parties, like elections, like government, like power, so on. But nevertheless, also this formal concept, this letters give us an understanding that there is a sort of alternative discourse that is, we can say, marginal, not dominant, but still this exists, that trying to conceptualize democracy within the maximalist definitions, first of all, and connected democracy with the rule of law, with liberal democracy, with transitions, with nation state, nationalism, and so on. This is what it is for us. For personalization. Personalization, we can formulate the myth or stereotype or problem, like we can make one universal operational scheme for democracy relation. If we have this dominant discourse, if we have this general understanding that democracy is institutions, why not to make a universal parameters to measure democracy? Formal concept analysis give a tool for such a, first of all, for reduction of parameters. Just to put that this is the myth, I'll show you here how do Freedom House and Berkeley Scientific Foundation operationalize democracy. So we can see that the rule of law. What is rule of law according to BTI? It is the separation of power in the judiciary, views civil rights. Yeah? According to the Freedom House, rule of law we can find in such subcategory like civil liberties. So for BTI, civil rights within rule of law. For Freedom House, rule of law within civil liberties, with civil rights. So there is great differences and misleading personalization scheme that give different indices. Let's give us an opportunity to criticize that we have some universal personalization of what is democracy. Why it's happened? Marlino, his work on democracy for change, said that there are different parameters that what is the most important, they all interplay with each other, they're all intercorrelated, interdependent with each other. So, interrelations between selected parameters, difficulties of measuring the selected parameters, this gives different difficulties to measuring selected parameters, and follow with that we need competent thought-through reduction of parameters. Formal concept analysis gives us such opportunity. To do this is very complicated from the first glance, maybe the second. What we've done, we take these 55 texts and read them. Yeah? Not only computing, but read them and figure out the objects. So formal concept analysis is a computing of objects, attitudes, matrix. Yeah? First we have to build object attitudes matrix. Objects here were different democracy with adjectives, that is in white frames, and also we figure out from the reading of this text so different parameters like violence, freedom of association, restriction of civil liberties, and so on. So we have 30 notions, and we have 45 parameters. Formal concept analysis gives an opportunity to reduce these parameters. How to do it? Using two rules. The first is that selected parameters have to relate to a large number of objects. Concept of democracy adjectives that mean that characteristic of they have to characterize at least half of the concepts. Also, formal concept analysis give us the implications, and the selected parameter can be the premises out of the conclusions within applications and association rule. So it gives us an opportunity to figure out, first of all, those parameters that are on the top. Just here, not very on the top, but somewhere here. What we've done, and we reduce 45 parameters of democratic development to 7. This is weakness of formal institutions and personal, violation of freedom of associations, violation of check and balance system, restriction of civil liberties, defects of feedback mechanism, governmental interventions in the economy, military power. Next thing is measurement. Here, the formal concept analysis is not so maybe not fruitful, but not. Still, there is something to improve and consult with mathematicians. First of all, this is my sort of hypothesis, maybe. That first of all, formal concept analysis gives us an opportunity to avoid from averaging. That all indices have that, because they to produce something, they produce first of all something, some numbers, and then make an average score. And formal concept analysis gives us a tool to escape and to produce something different from averaging. Also, my hypothesis that we can also do a sort of coding or collaboration. Here we have, to illustrate it, we have material index once again. We have the post-Soviet states. And here are some hypothetical countries like A, B, C, and A, F, G. We can see that two parameters like performance of democratic institutions and commitment to democratic institutions that is averaging in VTI index into the parameter of formal institutions and personalism. They just average it, make an average score. But if we have, for example, this country and this country, we will see that they average 3 and 7. Here we have average 5 and 5. Not average, but the score, the parameter. But when we will average them, there will be 5 in both cases. 3 and 7, 5, 5 and 5, 5. So the PT index will do what it will do with these two countries. It will just put them in one average score 5. Formal concept analysis gives us an opportunity to avoid this, and to see the difference that this country is really different from this. It's become not different only if we will average, make an average. Still have to think what also it can give to the analysts, like in the notions of calibration or graduation. Aggregation, the same problem with averaging, and also what is added here is nomination of country groups made typology of regimes. Formal concept analysis here propose multi-level typology. What do I mean with this myth? I mean that, for example, Freedom House and the Economist or in other rankings, what do? In the end, they just make a typology of countries, nominated the groups, like we have in Freedom House, 3 countries, partly free, not 3 countries, or in Economist we have full democracies, flawed democracies, hidden regimes, or authoritarian regimes. Yeah, or like I propose following the quality forming index, to divide them into 4 groups: autocracies, soft autocracies, effective democracies, full democracies. According to these, our countries, post-Soviet countries, will be divided into this group. We have 7 autocracies to autocracies, 3 elected democracies, and 3 full democracies. What do formal concept analysis give us? It gives us multi-level typology. Not 4 groups, not 3 groups, but the groups that we are free to combine to build this typology. We are free to build 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups like we want, based on the information that we have here, the information about how do different objects, data countries here, related to different parameters that we have here. It's first 4 parameters are from Bottom index, civil liberties from Freedom House, this back mechanism, it is from economist, correctly. So it gives us opportunity to say that this is one type, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, or say that one type is Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Ukraine, depending on the goal of our analysis. Visualization. This is the most, maybe not important, but first of all, that is, we can say about formal concept analysis that this is another type of visualization of the data. We have traditional forms of visualization like tables. This is the focus on things of economists, like maps, Freedom-House map is the most important, most famous. We have different charts and graphs by regional economists here. We have leaf diagrams. This is the one famous ranking of quality of democracy. What formal concept analysis gives us the opportunity to make such sort of lattices that give us not only a beautiful picture, but also give us the opportunity to see how different objects relate to different entities, what's happened with the countries if we are talking about democracy. We'll come back to this picture, but also interpretation is the final point. Myth, which country, usually when we are talking about interpretation, we mean first of all ask the question which countries are democratic and which are not. So the formal concept analysis give us opportunity to rethink this relevant problem and talk about the roadmaps or trajectories of democratic development or authoritarian growth. This is the figure of Freedom House ranking. By the way, this is the division on 3 parts. This is the Freedom House division, free, partly free and not free countries. Formal concept analysis gives us an opportunity to see who's on the top and why they're on the top. Who's here, why they're here, and so on. What do I mean then as a roadmap? I mean, first of all, that we can talk about, for example, the trajectories or some sort of ordering when which defects decline. Yeah? So what is the order of dimension of the different parameters of democracy? First of all, we have the decline of such parameter like functional government and the electoral process. And this can, after decline of this parameter, what is the follow is the regress in association and organizational rights, political pluralism, participation, and rule of law. The last parameter that is declining in hybrid region is this personal autonomy, individual rights, freedom of expression, peace. We can see here too that the most democratic Croatia and Slovakia, but when we come to Latvia and Serbia, we have here defect with functional government, then we have defect in individual rights, when we have defect in electoral process and so on.
Can I ask this small question here?
Yeah.
How do I know this is temporal order? Because this is what you're just saying. First this, and then that, and then that. Where does the temporal order come from?
This is not a temporal order. This is first of all, it's one year, as you can see. Yeah. If you want to have a temporal order, it's in that you have to compare two trees of different years. This will be the temporal order. This is not a temporal order, this is just gives an opportunity why one group of country less democratic than another, and why it's happened. Yeah? If we want to prove that this is a temporal order, then we have to compare trees of different years. Right? That formal conceptualization does not give us opportunity to.
But how do you get this ordering from 1 to 3? Why is it not
based on this? Only based on this. I agree that if you want to have it in temporal order, then you cannot do that from this, which is just a diminishing of why one group of country less democratic than another.
Oh, it's a set analysis then, sort of. Yeah. Okay.
So the same thing, what we can have an outcome from the implication that we have. Building this latest also computer program gave us an opportunity to build implications, and we have the same conclusion here that is very similar to this, that the first thing that is declined is the friend elections. First thing that they are later, and the first set of countries where we had this defect is friend election. Next parameter after the friend election is other parameter except freedom of association, that is diminishing the last. That violation, even in some soft autocracies, this kind of parameter not violated. In hard autocracies, it become violated. To sum up first knowledge discovery potential, what formal concept analysis gives us? First of all, it will create fuzzy topologies of objects and properties, attitudes. It's allowed to see implications, relations between indicators, and verify hypotheses about dependent variables, including complex interactions between different actors and attitudes. Define core attitudes, introduce parameters, provide opportunity to define the paths or trajectories of democratic development or economic growth or authoritarian growth, to formulate theoretical hypotheses for the following scientific discovery, and comparating between each other. This is, I don't know if you this picture, but this is another work that we can, where we can use the formal concept analysis to compare different ranking and to see where space of agreement and disagreement between them, and especially to focus on the disagreement area and to see why they disagree. Yeah, because they assess different parameters in different ways. This is the work that can be done in this project. This is it. I'm on time, yeah?
Perfect. Thank you, Dmitry. You're perfectly in time. And let's listen on the discussion. So, Christian and then Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much. Extremely interesting. It's the first time that I see that. So that is really new to me. And I have to say, it's not easy to grasp. It's not like you get an intuitive, complete understanding of what is really going on here. It reminds me, however, a little bit, in some sense, it reminds me of meta-analysis. And in another sense, it reminds me of QCA, because somehow you seem to work with set theory. So there is disagreement spaces and agreement spaces, and some countries belong into one category but not in another. And it seems to be, it also, if you see these tree diagrams, it also reminds me a little bit of structural equation modeling, at least from the optical impression. You see hierarchies and stuff. Although what I find fascinating, this is purely on a conceptual on a purely conceptual basis, and that makes it interesting, and that gives it added value to what you could do with a structural equation model, even though our possibilities have improved here too, and that would be interesting to see when you match to, but especially when we do a structural equation modeling, not just with the global indices, but they are now provided in disaggregated components. And it would be interesting if one can kind of replicate with this tool what we see here. And it was also interesting to, yeah, you get kind of a conceptual map, and you can locate countries to certain clusters of conceptual links, and that gives you a better, yeah, it has more of a case orientation then also in it, so you can, which makes it similar to QCA, because it claims that too, that it keeps sort of, has a variable approach, but it also takes in the focus on the individual cases, and you can locate the cases individually, obviously, on a conceptual map, and I find this highly intriguing and interesting. I just need more time to digest and maybe to read a little bit more and see some examples to what type of conclusions this can lead. So I'm just finishing here by saying I'm fascinated.
Thank you.
Okay. For me, it is, say, so to say, again, something I meet again, because I worked for some time with a mathematician at the University of Darmstadt, Rudolf Wille, who developed this in Germany, this whole concept analysis. And we had a lot of discussion because whether the psychometric approach or this approach is more adequate for, let's say, concept analysis and also measurement instruments. So, when I think now back to the discussions I had at that time, and when I heard your presentation, that I think, or I thought about the following things. I think it's very interesting. It's something else, it's something innovative. One thing is, what is the relation of deduction and induction? In your case, it's a very good instrument, maybe when you look at texts or at expert interviews or individual interviews, to reconstruct the let's say, concepts or words in the text. But the question is then, when from a deductive point of view of like Handel concept formation in philosophy of science, then could you use it also, we had this discussion also in Darmstadt, in a deductive way? So like confirmatory factor analysis and explanatory factor analysis. What do you think about this? So that you not only have always in every new study new results, but whether you have some general findings which you can test also with concept analysis. This would be one thing. The next thing is, difficult thing for me is also when you have a bigger sample, not only one person, one text, how to integrate the information of a lot, let's say, of a representative survey, when you have answers of a, if you have open questions, for example, to left, right, or nationality, and would your analysis how to integrate this would be for me interesting. The next topic is for me, for your research program, so to speak, what is the relation of this concept analysis, I discussed this also at the time with Wille, to latent class and cluster analysis, because there are also some techniques, but more quantitative ones, to order objects. And here you have some additional information. It would be interesting to work out what is the added value of this technique compared with cluster analysis or latent class analysis to get typologies. So, and then, let's see, and then the last one, I think I see also an interesting application more and more in cross-national research and also in other research. People use now cognitive interviews to understand what people really think about concepts. Like using thinking aloud technique or probing techniques. Then you get normally an interview thinking what people think aloud, and would be interesting to use this technique also to analyze this, because normally the analyses are rather ad hoc, which I have seen, in the past of these cognitive interviews, and not in such a structured way. So this would be also, I think, an interesting application. So these are my thoughts.
Very good. Dmitry, what is your take on this?
Thank you. Thank you very much for comments. First of all, about QC, this is what I want to comment. Yes, it's very, very close to the QC technique, and even the first time I presented this was the paper, how formal concept analysis can contribute into QC, because they are all both have the same mathematical basis. And it was the panel of QC people, and they say that indeed there is something that can be developed here, not by only me, but just all of the people who do FCA and QC, and then I say to FCA people, to say, look guys, there is such a great method QC, so it's very complicated, complementary to your method. What do you think about it? But so process is, this is the problem that there is a fan of one method, and they are very close to each other, very close community that we do not communicate with each other. But indeed, it's very, very close methods. Okay, cases interview the conceptual methods, very great idea. Thank you. This is what we're thinking about this too. Induction, deduction, this is something that I have to think about, about this deductive way.
When you are bored by it.
A little bit, but what I can comment is that about these interviews, that we really think about this too, not just to reconstruct the interviews that already was taken, but to ask people, or to take an interview in this object attitudes way, so they can put 0-1, not just explaining something, but to put 0-1 in, so the actors follow this expertise. There was an idea to make an expert interview with those people who are experts in this democracy with adjectives, so they can relate the concepts to the cases exactly. And this is was a sort of combination of SC, formal concept analysis and the expert interviews, but more formal. Make it in a more formal way. Yes, this is a lot of people said that there is a lot of similarities between formal concept analysis and cluster analysis, but what the main difference that is formal concept analysis is more qualitative, cluster is more quantitative, and the outcome for formal concept analysis is more rich, because the formal concept analysis reduces less data than the cluster analysis. This is, I think, is why the formal concept analysis for typology has some added value. This is my answer.
Thank you. There are still 5 to 6 minutes, so this is your moment for asking questions. Or if they're waiting. Okay.
Maybe.
You have the exclusive opportunity to ask a question to Dmitry. Probably they need a bit more time to digest those big clouds.
Might I ask one question?
Oh, there is time.
Only one. What are your future plans for this, for the application of this research method?
First of all, I have to meet with mathematician people because they're very slowly and not very active. It will take some time to wake them up, like you guys. Yeah. First of all, plans to make a paper. Just because there are already a lot of materials that have to be rethink, and also to maybe to make the conclusions more clear for the audience. And but also my plans is to popularize these methods around the social scientists too, because I really believe that the future of social sciences in using mixed methods, not only quantitative and qualitative, but mixed methods. And this conference, by the way, showed this too, that you have to collaborate closely, quantitative and qualitative people, and go beyond quantitative and qualitative paradigms and to use mixed methods and to see the added benefits of this. This is my thanks.
Thank you, Dmitry.